What's up, guys? I'm Connor.
And I'm Taylor, and here's our guide to the Maldives. In case you didn't know anything about the Maldives, it's a small island nation just south of India.
The Maldives is made up of about 1,200 coral islands divided into 26 atolls. An atoll is a chain of islands formed of coral. There's about 200 islands that are inhabited now. The official language in the Maldives is Dahivi. Did I say that right?
Dahivi?
Deviahi.
Either way, it's a mix of Arabic and Indian.
The Maldives is actually the lowest lying country. The average height in their country is 4 feet. And I think the tallest natural height is 7 feet, which is insane. So one of the big issues in the Maldives is the rising sea levels, because if it goes any higher, it could take out a lot of their country.
So about 80% of the 1,200 islands are less than 3 feet above sea level. So if the sea level rises by 23 inches over the next century, as predicted by the government, the Maldives will disappear beneath the waves. 14 islands have already been abandoned because of rising sea levels, and the Maldivian population will eventually have to evacuate their country, becoming the first refugee victims of global warming. What's really interesting is the president of the Maldives even started buying land in Australia to migrate to, and he's selling islands to help fund that.
The best time to visit the Maldives is between November and April, because the rest of the year is monsoon season where it gets crazy storms.
The Maldives surf season begins in late February and runs until about mid-November. During the surf season, the average wave height is about 3 to 5 feet, with waves even going up to the 8 to 10 feet range.
We were there for about 13 days on this boat called the Maldives Pirates. We were shooting for them as well as other brands.
There's a lot of pros and cons to being on a live-aboard boat like we did with the Maldives Pirates. One of the biggest things is we got to see a lot more because we were just constantly traveling around.
Some of the things that I liked about the boat was we were able to go to a different location every day. So we saw a bunch of different diving spots, different sandbars, we went to different surf breaks, different islands. There was so much to see. What was also really cool is included in our stay on the boat, they cooked every meal for us. So we didn't have to go out and try to find a restaurant. We just came back to the boat after our adventures and we had food waiting for us.
The only con that I have about the boat is during really big storms, the whole boat is just rocking back and forth, and it's like, and that's like a little bit scary, but it was definitely an experience.
Okay. Okay, so two of the islands we went to were New Male and Toulouse. New Male was more of like a city island. It was next to the airport. They had a lot of high rises and apartments, where Toulouse was more of a local island.
Yeah, I definitely say it's like almost more third world-ish. There's dirt roads. There's not really cars on them. There's limited resources.
Not very many restaurants. I mean, a couple, but...
Yeah, not that many people in general, but it's definitely like an outer lying like island, and there's like a stark contrast between the two. But no matter where we went, there was cats everywhere. And
they were really nice, though.
Yeah, seriously, Taylor is the cat whisperer.
No, don't put that in there.
Why?
Because...
It's gonna be just you petting kitties.
Okay.
So while we were on the boat, we were provided with 3 meals a day.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, super good. The food was so fresh. The cook was absolutely amazing on the boat. The food was really heavily Indian influenced and was quite spicy.
A lot of curry.
Yes. So much curry.
And a lot of options if you're vegetarian. A lot of the meals, he would cook it either vegetarian or with the local fish that they would get either from a market that morning, or they would actually catch it right off the boat. So super fresh. So one thing that's kind of interesting about the Maldives is it's a Muslim nation and they don't allow alcohol unless you're on a boat or in some of the resorts. If you like booze, get on a boat.
If you like boozing and cruising, get on a boat. Because it's a Muslim nation, you have to dress modestly, meaning that your knees and your shoulders have to be covered, and there's actually separate beaches for the tourist where you can wear like a normal like bikini or board shorts and like no shirt, and then essentially the locals, the Muslim people there, they have their own local beaches where there's like clear signs and stuff that are there to make sure that you stay covered and that you're respecting their culture, their way of life, the people that live there.
And they weren't mean about it. They just had signs up everywhere with examples on what you should be wearing, and usually it was just your knees covered, your shoulders covered, whether you're a guy or a girl, and just on the sign it just said, please respect our cultures and traditions, which is reasonable.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing for me is that like this trip really changed my perspective on Muslims. I feel like ever since 9/11, the U.S. has had a clear dislike for Muslims, unfortunately.
Especially in the media.
Yeah, definitely in the media, and especially like where I grew up in the Midwest, I feel like it was like very obvious, unfortunately. We're kind of taught to think that like Muslims are cold and like maybe that all of them are like terrorists and like have bad motives, and like we can't relate to them because they're not like Christian, and I think that's all bullshit. What we learned is that they're extremely nice, they're very friendly, and they're super family oriented. One thing that really surprised both of us was just like how family oriented they all were, and it really changed our perspective on Muslims. And
everywhere we went in New Malé, in the city island, there were parks all over the place, and I'd never seen so many families just playing with their kids in the park. In the U.S., people, especially in Hawaii, like people are outside a lot more often, but in most cities, this park was packed full of families playing with their kids. I'd never seen so many families everywhere we went.
Yeah, seriously. I thought it was funny when you saw like the families mopeding, and it was like 2 kids and like a mom on a moped and stuff like that too, like in the city.
Or soccer practice everywhere. We saw so many soccer fields.
Seriously.
With little kids playing and their parents cheering them on. It was cool. So we were there for 13 days, and unfortunately for me, 9 of the 13 days that we were there were overcast, and I don't surf. So
yeah, it was really unfortunate, and that's something that we've talked to a lot of people about since, that actually having bad weather in the Maldives is fairly common.
It's really unpredictable weather.
Yeah, the storms, like you'll have a perfectly sunny morning, and then like within 10 minutes you see a cloud on the horizon, and boom, you're getting dumped on, and the rest of your day is like kind of ruined. The perk to that though is sometimes those storms move on really quickly too, and then it's like, oh shit, we've got horrible weather in the morning, and then like 30 minutes later you have just amazing weather, and so we were kind of in and out of that for like 9 days, and that was brutal for her, but I just surfed a lot. The one thing about the gloomy weather is that it doesn't affect the water clarity, so even if it's super crappy out, you can still see all this amazing marine life. And we saw dolphins, multiple kinds of stingrays, manta rays, a freaking 3-foot long pufferfish, an octopus. There were sharks almost every day.
When we're talking about sharks, I think most people think it's like a giant Jaws great white shark. These were little sharks. They were only about 3 feet big. They were about as big as a lot of the fish that we saw. So they were really not a big deal. Most people are afraid of sharks, but these sharks, they just wanted to say what's up, and then they'd head off and do their own thing. They didn't really want anything to do with us.
Yeah. It was crazy. There's parrotfish there, which like we have those in Hawaii, but they're only like 2 feet long. We saw parrotfish that were like 4 feet long and like freaking huge, and they were bigger than the sharks. So I think that was kind of cool to see. I think one of the reasons for them having such amazing underwater life is that there's no spearfishing. That was done around like 2010 because there's a lot of overfishing, but it's really helped rejuvenate the reefs and just like restock their fish populations.
I have dove in Hawaii and Belize, and I'd never seen so many fish as in the Maldives. It was insane. And the types of fish, it was unbelievable diving.
Yeah, it was crazy. The thing that I couldn't get over was how good of shape the coral was in. I was looking it up, and there's 187 species of coral there.
A lot of the islands are actually formed by the coral. So a lot of the sandbars you see are the coral. Once the natural process of it breaking down builds up and creates an island, and that creates a lot of their country.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy. So they need a natural cycle of like coral, like living, dying, creating new islands, etc.
But that is not happening right now because a lot of the coral is actually dying because of the rising temperature levels in the ocean.
Yeah, so we call that coral bleaching.
So what happens when the water heats up is the coral cannot survive and it actually ends up dying, and the remnants of what you see is where the coral used to live. So that's why it's white, because that means that there's no coral currently living there anymore. So essentially this kind of looks like a coral graveyard.
Yeah, it was really sad. And what's crazy is like we were snorkeling at a sandbar, and one side of it was like in amazing shape and like super live coral, and then you swim 30 yards to the other side where there's more wave action and stuff like that, and it literally was like a graveyard within the same 100-yard span.
So why is the water so clear in the Maldives? That's what I want to know.
It's actually because they have a lot of phytoplankton, and they absorb blue and green from the light, and so that makes the water super clear.
The boat that we were on was actually a surf boat, and so the whole trip was actually a surf trip. But I didn't surf, so what was your favorite wave of the trip?
Ooh, favorite wave? I don't think I have just one. I really like Sultan's, which is where they hold the Four Seasons surfing event every year. And then right across the channel from that is this break called Jailbreaks, where it was like such a fun, really, really long ride.
But what were the two waves that you spent the most time at?
Cokes and Chickens, by far, just because there's a right there and a left. They're located at Toulouse, so there's a great little island there, and then there's also sandbars that you can go frolic and snorkel at that are nearby.
So how did these waves compare to the waves we have here on Oahu?
The waves are a lot more mellow there. They're really like chill, and I would say like a 5-foot wave there has the same power as like a 2-foot wave here in Hawaii. The thing that was different though is that the tides really affect the waves there. So surfing at high or low tide drastically changes your day. Also, because of drastic tides, that affects their rip currents a lot. So you're getting ripped around a lot more there.
So what type of board do you use?
So because it's slow and like kind of more mellow waves, I would definitely suggest bringing like a thicker board than you usually would ride. So I rode fishes the whole time, and I love that. I had a great experience because I was able to get into like a lot of waves that way. If you're going to bring a performance thruster, definitely bring one that's a little bit thicker than you think that you need. Trust me, it'll help you get into the waves just because they're like so mellow. And there's definitely going to be some down days on your trip. So if you can, bring a longboard, or you can rent one fairly cheap there on Toulouse for Cokes and Chickens.
So how easy is it to get a surfboard to the Maldives?
It's a pain in the ass. So it honestly might be cheaper for you to rent one or just buy one in the Maldives. I'm not going to lie. It really depends on your airline though, and we flew China Eastern, and it was a pain. I asked people on my Instagram page what they wanted to know about the Maldives, and here's a few of their questions.
Can I say them?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the proper pronunciation?
Maldives. So in their native language, they call the Maldives Maldi. So hence Maldives. It's just an easy pronunciation there. All the Australians like to say Maldives, and our boat captain put it the best. You say Maldives unless you want to be Australian or somebody that sounds like an Australian.
Where would be the best place to stay?
I think that this really depends on your budget. You can stay at a nice resort with a bungalow that has like a water slide, but that's going to be like $3,000 a night. Some of the resorts have private waves, which is insane. Like only people at that resort can surf that wave. There's hostels there that can be really cheap. And then also there's the liveaboard boats that we did. But I think that the liveaboard boat gives you the most freedom.
I think it depends on what you're going for. If you just want to have a relaxing vacation, definitely do a resort. If you want to have more of an adventure, then I would suggest either on one of the local islands at one of their hotels or a liveaboard boat. But you do have to remember that if you do like to drink on your vacation, then don't go to a local island. The boat would be your best bet.
Or one of the resorts. Yeah, the resorts you can drink at too. How do you do the Maldives on a budget?
How do you do the Maldives on a budget?
Oh.
Well. No, I would say either having a place, I would say not going to a resort if you're trying to save money, because that is probably like the most expensive way to go. If you actually want to do it super cheap, I would find a cheaper liveaboard boat with food included like we did, or stay at a hostel. The hostels can be really inexpensive, and the food on the island was fairly inexpensive as well. But if you do stay on the island, then you'll have to pay for excursions off the island on a boat that would be included on a liveaboard boat. So the liveaboard boat is more expensive than staying on the island, but I think that it's a better bang for your buck.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. If you want to know more about the hostels, my good buddy Jordan, he has a video all about hostel living in the Maldives. Check that out. I'll add the link right here.
Where can you go to learn more about the Maldivian history and culture?
For me, I honestly just got really drunk with the captain of our ship.
And he was super nice.
Yeah,
he told us about everything.
Everything, yeah. And that was my favorite part, getting drunk with him. And he was not the most strict Muslim Maldivian guy, and that was pretty fun, just like learning about their way of life there. And then we also had guys on our boat that were from Bangladesh, the cook and then one of the deckhands. And so it was really interesting learning about how like Bangladesh has extreme poverty, and even though the wages in the Maldives are very low, that it's like a world of a difference and so much better for the people from Bangladesh. And then a lot of times they even just take the money that they earn and they send it back to their families. Is the Maldives a third world country?
Technically, yes, but it's considered a developing country. Right now, the median household income is about $6,000 a year, but it is increasing more and more every year.
I know your parents were worried about this one. Is the Maldives safe?
I felt super safe in the Maldives. When we talked to people there, both people on vacation and the residents, they said that the biggest issue they had with piracy were actually pirates attacking some of the trade routes through the outer islands, so not affecting the tourists at all.
Yeah, and the Maldives was actually ranked one of the safest places to visit in the whole world. So there's that.
Last Instagram question, was there anything weird about the Maldives?
Yeah, I think right when we walked off the plane and we went through the baggage claim, it was kind of interesting. It was like a really open air airport, and then right across from the baggage claim is a harbor. Like most airports, they open up and you go into like a place where you pick up a car or a taxi or a bus or something like that. You literally go out from baggage claim there and you get right onto your boat, which is pretty much like their bus there because it's like a water nation. So that was really interesting. Just, I didn't know what to expect when we first got there, and you're like, what the hell? Like, oh, I just have to take a boat everywhere because that's how life is here.
I thought it was interesting they didn't have any alcohol, but it makes sense. Some random tips before we go?
Yeah, definitely use skyscanner.com for your flights. We had round trip tickets for $615 from Hawaii, which is pretty insane.
It's unbelievable, yeah.
But we did have a 23-hour layover in Shanghai. But it was cool because you can go check out Shanghai on a travel visa if it's less than 72 hours. And if your layover is less than 12 hours, the airport will actually hold on to your bags. But if it's over 12 hours, then you have to store your bags in a locker there, or you can just take them to the city with you. And they have this crazy high-speed train that we'll talk about in the Shanghai video. Anyway.
Bring appropriate clothing for when you do go into the city or the local islands, but then you can also bring clothing that you want to wear when you're not at those places, like if you're on a boat or a resort.
Yeah. I would definitely say bring the proper snorkel gear, bring stuff that you're comfortable in, bring good fins, potentially a dive belt, stuff like that, because you're definitely going to want to spend a lot of time snorkeling. Go with an open mind, especially if you're from Western culture. It is a Muslim nation, it is a little bit different, and I mean, I left with a fresh perspective on the Muslim religion, essentially.
Be respectful, and people will usually respect you in return.
Yeah, absolutely. And lastly, go before it's underwater.
Like he said before, the sea levels are rising, and this is not going to be a destination that you'll be able to visit for much longer. Like all those beautiful sandbars, go before they're gone.
Yeah, seriously. Well, that does it for us, guys. Hopefully you liked the video. Please check out the cinematic one that I made. Like and subscribe, and if we didn't answer anything, just add it into the comments and we'll try and respond. I need a towel, I'm sweating, I'm nervous. All right. Are you ready? That
was great.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Tricks, review, guide, bullshit. I don't know how to speak to a camera. Oh god, this is why I'm behind the camera.
Okay.